Nikkei Asia News Roundup
with Jada and Brian. Welcome to the Nikkei Asia News Roundup with your hosts Jada and Brian,
bringing you the latest updates and insights on the dynamic world of Asia and more.
Now let's delve into the headlines. This program is brought to you by Nikkei.
Japan will in April further tighten restrictions on foreign nationals seeking to purchase agricultural land, requiring more information about their residency status amid growing concern about security risks to the country's food supply.
Malaysian electric vehicles are gaining ground in their home market, as local car makers Proton Holdings and Perdua challenge top seller BYD and Tesla with more affordable models.
While many governments of small Pacific Island countries are embracing Elon Musk's Starlink and the high-speed internet connections provided by the satellite internet service, others in the region remain wary of the company's growing presence, citing regulatory concerns, infrastructure investment risks, and data security considerations.
Offering cheaper alternatives than their South Korean and Japanese counterparts, Chinese beauty products are appealing to price-conscious consumers and are enjoying booming sales in Indonesia.
Apple's struggles in China are spreading beyond poor iPhone sales, with shipments of wireless earphones and tablets falling last year as consumers shift to more affordable domestic manufacturers.
People in Myanmar are turning to solar panels and battery storage systems, as scheduled power outages under the military government make daily life a struggle. Now moving on to the next segment.
Thai resorts ride on the White Lotus effect. The White Lotus will put Thailand, and particularly Koh Samui, back on the map, says the general manager of the Four Seasons Resort Koh Samui, a hotel in the Thai island resort that served as the main location for the third season of the hugely successful TV series. The first two seasons of the show, which depict the idyllic but sometimes problematic lives of affluent tourists staying in luxury hotels, were filmed at Four Seasons resorts on Maui and Sicily. Both had a significant effect on the popularity of the hotel chain. But the impact of The White Lotus goes beyond luxury hotels. Both Maui and Sicily also saw an increase in overall tourism interest. With the third season being broadcast from February to April, other resorts on Koh Samui, along with Thailand's tourism authority, are hoping for a similar windfall. Already, according to Expedia, flight searches for Koh Samui have increased by 30% since the setting of the latest series was announced almost a year ago.
Southeast Asia's homegrown pop music surges in popularity. The share of homegrown tunes is growing in Southeast Asia's music market, fueled by advancements in digitization that have reduced production and distribution costs. The rise of middle-income consumers with greater purchasing power, along with the widespread use of social media, has further accelerated this trend. In Indonesia, once a stronghold of U.S. music, the share of homegrown tunes in on-demand streaming increased to 35% last year, up 12 percentage points from 3 years ago, while the share of U.S. tracks dropped 5 points to 26%, according to a study based on data from U.S.-based analytics company Luminate. The share of K-pop also declined from 12% to 8% over the same period. Thailand is also seeing similar changes. In Indonesia, singer-songwriter known as Bernadja scored major hits last year. The use of the local language has undoubtedly enhanced the appeal of her music. The same trend is evident in Thailand, where T-pop groups like 4EVE and Proxy, who sing and dance like South Korea's K-pop idols, perform live concerts across the country.
And now for news highlights. In each episode, Jada and I have a discussion about a recent article that has particularly captured our attention.
And today we'd like to talk about the effects of climate change and social media on Mount Everest and how Nepal is trying to better regulate tourism at the world's highest peak.
Now, Jada, you've probably seen photos of Everest, just a snow cliff or mountainside, and literally hundreds of people lined up trying to get to the summit.
I've seen like photos of those. I mean, it looks very crowded, which is pretty surprising.
Yeah, and it's shocking because this is supposed to be a remote part of the world, the highest peak in the world, way out there. And it's known for, if you summit it, it's a pretty big achievement. But now it's somewhere over like 6,000 people have summited Everest, which is a huge number. And most of those have happened in the past decade or so.
Oh, wow.
So
pretty recent.
That's becoming a problem because of over-tourism or overcrowding on the mountain. And that, in turn, is causing problems with safety. And also people bending the rules. And also the question of, what are the rules? And that's what this story talks about.
Yeah, we really had an interesting story recently, and it touches on these new rules that Nepal is introducing. So you mentioned permits or people climbing the mountain increased, especially after COVID, right? And
in COVID, there were no summits recorded. That's a really significant because usually it's a couple hundred per year.
I guess one of the reasons, since in the last decade so many people have climbed the mountain is because Nepal actually almost nearly 7% of their GDP is comprised of tourism, the tourism sector. So it's a huge part of their economy, and obviously they need money to come in through that. But as you mentioned, global warming and social media have kind of made climbing. Well, there's talks about, what is it, ecotourism or
this is, you mentioned the climate change part because climbing season on Everest, it depends on these different mountains. I mean, the Himalayas is this huge band of mountains, and they affect the weather, and the weather affects them. And Everest is famous for having its climbing season being in late April, early May, and that's when a huge chunk of the people who try to summit do it, because those are the few weeks of the year where the weather is pretty much guaranteed to be decent for climbing. But that's been changing over the past few years. So there's a lot more risk, a lot more danger coming in. At the same time, there's a lot more people coming in who are not perhaps as skilled at mountaineering. And that's one of the rules that's coming in right now.
That you need some experience.
You need some experience. You need to have what's the height they want? They want evidence that you've climbed mountains of a certain height before you can attempt Everest.
Yeah, I think above 8,000. 8,000 or 7,000. But there's a lot of new rules coming into effect, and actually I think it's supposed to come into effect this September, right after the peak season of this year. And one of the rules is that for every 2 climbers above 8,000 meters, you need at least 1 guide will be mandatory. The permit fees will go up a significant amount, so more money you will need to spend.
Let's go over those because it's not cheap to climb Everest.
No. It's actually foreigners to be charged $15,000 during peak season, so that's up 36%. Wow.
And in the off season, it's going up as well, but not by as much, which.
But not many people will want to go during non-peak season. That's one
of the issues, is that there's less experienced climbers attempting Everest, and I think in the off season you want to be more experienced. You have to have much more mountaineering knowledge, and so that also touches on something you were saying earlier, is about waste management. Where people climbing it are too tired to pick up after themselves, and they're leaving trash on the mountain.
There's a photo in the story actually where it's just a pile of waste that you can see at Mount Everest, and it's pretty kind of hard to see. But that's one of the new rules, right? Climbers must bring all waste and trash back to base camp for disposal.
And this is a new hard rule that they're requiring that, because one of the loose rules they were trying is that if you bring back a certain amount of trash with you, you can have you either get reimbursed a little bit or you get fined. I forget which way it goes. And a lot of climbers are just saying, I can't be bothered, or I'm too tired. I'm just going to take the fee.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to crack down on that as well. And that's the other thing I want to talk about is local guides, Sherpas, famous for being really good at climbing mountains. And they're essential. Like the rules require that you have a guide. And they're not paid that well, a lot of people argue. And so one of these is trying to help Sherpas, who, by the way, Sherpas is also the group of people that live along the mountains. It's not just individual guides. It's a whole community. And they don't get paid that well often. And so I think a lot of these rules are trying to weed out the less scrupulous hiking companies that are getting in on the Everest business. Because there are companies that are really good at this and very professional, but there's a lot of them coming in that are on the edge, and I think these rules are trying to work on that.
Because one of the rules has to do with so Sherpas are the guides' life insurance, right? It's that the expedition companies need to provide, I think, 1.5 million rupees in coverage. So that's it used to be 1.2 million, so it's a little slight bump there.
And people are arguing that's still not enough, but it's a step.
I get, but the big concern here is that these new rules are coming in, but that the Nepalese government may not enforce them really. So how much will this actually happen? Is I think some of the concerns that the Sherpas are voicing.
And that's the part over the next year we're going to have to see.
Yeah. And then China, actually the Mount Everest is so huge, it touches on China.
That's a good point, because the border between Tibet and Nepal runs right across the summit of Everest. And so there's climbing on the north side, which is the Chinese-controlled side. And they're much more strict about climbing. And it looks like Nepal is kind of trying to get more in line with enforcing such discipline on the mountain.
And that brings us to the close of today's episode.
We look forward to having you join up again for the next edition of the Nikkei Asia News Roundup.
Stay informed, stay curious. Until next time, I'm Jada.
And I'm Brian. See you again, and take care. This program is brought to you by Nikkei.